Okay, go ahead and do that. So here we get again, we have Carol Tolman and Heidi Zollman as our co-presidents. We have Teresa Starkey and Bonnie Bell as our co-vice presidents. We have Holly Sturgill as our treasurer, and we have Sherry McManus as our secretary. Other board members also include Liz Cannon, Daniel Cullinane, Debbie Dubriel, Kristen Waddle, Kate McCaffrey, and myself, Diane Mellum. So we're also really happy. We are fortunate enough to have staff members from Allenstown Community School joining us today so that they can show us and present to us their walk to word study. So we have Principal Shannon Kruger. She has spent her entire career serving students in New Hampshire. She was a school counselor for 12 years, behavior specialist for 3 years, and has been an administrator for the past 16 years. She has been with the Allenstown School District for the past 8 years. We also have Assistant Principal Sarah Petersons, who is she has been an educator for 25 years and has worked in the Allenstown School District for the last 16 years. Sarah was a special ed education case manager primarily at the middle school level for 20 years. And we have reading specialist Kimberly Berrigan. Kimberly has been an educator in New Hampshire for over 25 years. After teaching 3rd grade in Kingston, she started in the Allenstown School District as a Title I interventionist. She then enjoyed time as a school classroom teacher for grades K through 2 and has served as reading specialist since 2021. They have just completed their final year in a newly built school. Prior to May 2024, they were in 2 separate schools, Allenstown Elementary School, which served 6 students in grades K through 4, and our Armand R. DuPont School, which served students in grades 5 through 8. Hey, Casey.
Oh, sorry.
Their primary focus for literacy has been in K through 4, but they know that the need for thoughtful literacy programming and interventions does not end when students move on to grades 5 to 8. Now that they are all together, it is becoming easier to expand their continuum of instruction and services so that children in Allenstown have a thoughtful and purposeful K through 8 focus on literacy and growth. For the purpose of this presentation, the focus will highlight the K through 4 literacy journey featuring their walk to word study block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my slide, and Kimberly, Sarah, and Shannon, if you want to just start, and if you can let me know when to move my slides, that would be great.
Sounds good. Okay.
Are you guys there?
So on behalf of Sarah, really, and I and I'm presenting our journey of walk to word study with all of you, a little bit about how we started and then where we are now and where we are looking to go. As Diane Mellum said, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary in our brand new school in Allenstown, and we have combined our middle school and elementary school. We were the first new school to be built in New Hampshire in many years using state grant and favorable state grant funding, and we were thrilled that our community voted to build the school.
Should we go to the next
one? Oh, sorry, next slide. Should I beep? Should I make a beeping sound? So a little bit about demographic declining enrollment. So last year at the end of the year, we ended with 332 students. We are currently at 351. So we have grown by a full classroom just over this year. We have historically been considered an economically disadvantaged town. Recently, that trend has been changing a little bit. We find that, you know,
Recording in
homes
progress.
in this community have been affordable, but for young professional families into the community. Our free and reduced lunch rate has hovered mostly between 50 and 60%. We are currently at 40%. So a little bit about kind of what who we're servicing, K-4 specifically, since that's what this presentation is about. We have about 210 students. We have 13 classroom teachers. We have 41 of our students are receiving special education services from 3 case managers. We have 40 students that receive Title I services, and we have 3 Title I interventionists. We are Title I universal at our K-4 level, and that obviously serves that same enrollment of 210 students. You can turn the slide or flip the slide.
And I just want to remind people, to participants, that if you have any questions, to go ahead and write that in the chat. We have a Google Doc in there for us to have questions that they can answer at the end.
Yep. We have wheels. We're
We're gonna wheel around.
Just also, it's coming in and out, so I don't know if you have to be closer to the computer or what, but it's not always really.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm Kimberly, the reading specialist, and I just wanted to give you a little background on the kinds of programs we use here at our School for Literacy of Scarborough's Reading Rope. We are using the Foundations program, which Diane so nicely introduced us 2 years ago back in Allenstown. And language comprehension focus, we use EL Education for our core programming. You can go ahead and change the slide. And then we're going to be talking to you a lot about walk to word study, but I also wanted to throw in a few other pieces that we've added to our literacy program here at school since my tenure. And that has obviously helped our scores go up as well. So in K-2, we've introduced sound walls. And we have something that consistent sound wall that matches with our Foundations keywords, so we can keep those 2 programs connected. And we're teaching the children how to use those as a resource in the classroom throughout the day. We've also purchased, thankfully, the school board got us the geodes, and those are decodable, 80% decodable, and that allows us to have materials to put in children's hands. Also aligns with our Foundations program, so it's nice to have some consistent materials through our grade levels. And also we have our Spire reading intervention program, and the reason that we decided to use that program is because, again, the sequencing matches so nicely with Foundations, and it's that systematic explicit instruction that we know is so great for students. And we found that it works really nicely as a tier 2 and sometimes tier 3, depending on the student intervention for our students. You can change the slide.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Kimberly.
I don't know. Okay.
Okay, try again.
Okay, can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So how did we start with the work to word study idea? Basically, my first year as reading specialist, I was sitting in my little reading office, and I was trying to figure out how I could get the numerous groups of students that needed intervention into groups with only 3 interventionists. So I was like racking my brain of what could I do differently? What as a school haven't we tried yet? And having just come from a first grade classroom the year before, I knew the struggles of the classroom teachers and how difficult it is to have multiple levels within the classroom. And, you know, if you have kids that are working rather quickly, then they end up getting bored, and there's behaviors that are involved there, and you know, you need to add enrichment within your classroom. Then if you have the students that are needing more time, you want to be able to give that to them and not have always having as much time within your reading block to be able and had a big whiteboard in front of me, and I just started writing all of the kids' names down that were falling below the 40th percentile on our benchmark testing that year. And I just started making groups based on need. And I came up, and pretty soon I had the whole school on there, and different teachers were coming in and going, "What are you doing? What is this? What's happening here?" And I said, "Well, I'm just trying to think outside the box and change things up a little bit to see how we can recover from COVID," because this was a response to just multiple intervention needs and finding a way to service all of them. And it just basically started that way. And I met with teachers and said, "Okay, here's what I came up with. Take a look at the students that are on this list from your classroom. Do you feel like these are good groups for where you find where your students are?" And we basically just started a program where students would be able to get what they need at their level. And so I pitched it to our admin team, and they were on board, and we decided to go with it. So I just love that quote from Desmond Tutu, where it talks about we need to stop pulling kids out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out where they're falling in. And that's basically, I had just heard that quote in a different conference that I had gone to, and I was like, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to stop them at the top of the stream instead of at the bottom. And so that's where this idea came from. You can turn the slide.
All set.
Okay, so we had just begun our change to the science of reading-based programming, and one of the things that we did have in place at that time when we were shifting gears was we did have foundations in place. So we definitely wanted to keep that aspect of our word study program. So as I mentioned, this was a response to increased layers of need. We decided to differentiate the phonics instruction using that program. So what we did was we did the placement test for all students to decide what skills they needed. And then we created these groups. Again, I had teachers look at them to make sure that they matched up with what they saw in the classroom as far as pacing. We had slow-paced groups. We had average moving groups. We had more fast-paced groups. And we took all of that into consideration too, not just skills. We really broke it up that deeply. And then we looked at how many people in the building do we have that we can assign groups to, so that we can really have an all hands-on approach where we can attack this situation. And then we just we went ahead with our programming. We were able to get the Fun Hub program, which comes through Wilson. And that allowed us to have all the posters and things that we needed on the TVs in our classrooms. And so that was helpful, because that way, no matter where you were, if you were in the cafeteria, if there was a TV wheeled in, then you could have what you needed as far as resources. And we had, what we do is we make sure that we go through the lessons with 80% efficiency. We make sure that the students receive individual and immediate feedback and corrections within their groups. So that way they are getting, like I said, what they need for that program at their own pace. And we did such a nice job, I have to say, patting myself on the back here, of grouping those students that they really did make progress, because they were in groups of students that were at the same level as them. So they didn't feel stressed out. They didn't feel like they were left behind. They just, they were progressing, and they were seeing that the kids in their group were having the same struggles that they were. So it was a very nice weld for them. You can change the slide.
Okay.
So how does walk to word study work? So our groups range in size from 2 to 18. It depends on, again, what students need and how many staff members we have available to help with this. Every child was assigned a room to walk to for their instruction. I made little name tags for each kid with a New Hampshire animal on the front of them, and then each teacher had a New Hampshire animal mapped to their classroom or their space where they were going to be teaching their word study group. So we did some practices where at the beginning of the year, the teachers would give them their little lanyard with their picture on it and their name, and then they would tell them which classroom or what location they were going to. And we would say, okay, when the bell rings, go ahead to walk to word study. And they would go to that location, and then they would stay there for a minute so that we could make sure everybody's there. And then we would send them back. And then 2 minutes later, we would say, okay, let's try it again. And we went through, that process where they could practice walking back and forth to their classrooms until they got used to where they were going. And that happened within the first day. So the kids were very excited to be leaving their classroom and either going to like teachers that they were excited to have that maybe older siblings had, or teachers that they had had in the past. So we had that nice, um, nice communication and collaboration happening there. That we have, we decided at first we started with about 40 minutes, and we have narrowed it down now to 30 minutes for word study. It's very targeted. It's you come in, you're working the whole time, and then you're leaving, and that has worked what's worked best for our students. We have tried different times of the day where we had it at the end of the day. That didn't work so well. Then we had it in the middle of the afternoon before lunch. The kids were very excited to get to lunch, so we had a little bit of wiggleness at that time of the day. So now we have locked in on 8:25 to 8:55, and the consensus is that that's a great time for all of our students. They're coming in, they're fresh, they had just had morning meeting, they're ready to work, and everybody's in a good mood most of the time. So almost all elementary staff are involved, either teaching a group or supporting a group. And again, that Fun Hub program works a lot. You can see in the picture there, one of my students in my groups up on the TV, we're using the slides that are provided and imparting the lessons in with fidelity. Okay, you can turn the slide.
Okay.
All right, and then I mentioned a little bit about determining student placement where we use the initial screener. But to keep students in their group, they have to pass the end of unit tests with a score of 80% or above, which is what Foundations recommends to stay in their current level. So what happens is we have a lot of talking amongst the teachers to make sure that students are where they need to be. So if a student has, say, below an 80, like a 78 or something, we would let that one slide, and we would say, okay, let's see how they do on the next one. And we would look for patterns. So if the next time, if they came and had their unit test and scored under an 80%, then we would talk, the reading specialist, myself, and the teacher that's teaching the group would talk and decide, is this something that's just a testing problem? Is the student just not a good test taker? Do you see this happening? The student's not understanding in your lessons, and really just kind of talking about how is this student doing overall within the word study group, and then determining, is this the best placement for that student? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? Do they need more time with this topic? Are they an intervention during RTI? Are they getting a double dip of this kind of material later on in the day? And so then we progress monitor them throughout the unit. We document everything on grade level grids. And this is a great way for students and teachers to know how their students are doing, because you don't have your own students in your group some of the time. So like, for instance, I teach second grade this year, and I have a word study group with third and fourth graders. Can you hand me my water?
Yeah.
So sorry. And so the third and fourth graders in my group, I end up, after I take my unit tests, I put their scores on the kid grid in the third grade unit data team grid, and also the fourth grade data team grid. And so that way the third and fourth grade teachers can log into this grid and see how their students are doing at a glance. So that way they can put the scores in the report card, because we don't do that for our word study groups. Teachers still do that. And we send the unit test back to the classroom so the teachers can see the actual test, so that they can see what mistakes the students are making, and then decide if they want to work more on a certain skill when they have time in the classroom. Groups are fluid and altered as needed throughout the year. So we don't wait for benchmark testing time to change these groups. We do it on the fly. Like I said, if there's 2 or more unit tests that the student is not passing, then we talk about it right away and make those changes as needed, as it comes up. All right, you can change the slide. I'm gonna take a quick sip.
Here we go.
Okay, this is you anyway. Good timing. Oh, okay.
Chairs. Okay.
One of the components when we implemented our walk to word study, and you'll see it kind of on the next slide, is that one of the things when we were looking at the data, thinking about our students, the progress they were making during the school year, is we were noticing that there was really, there was a drop off for some of our students happening over the summer, that summer slide that we often talk about. But we are also noticing that there were students who were, maybe in level 2, and they only had 1 unit left of level 2. So we knew that when they would come back in September, they still needed those skills. So they were going to need to start at level, at that level 2 for that unit, and then they could move on to the level 3. So in thinking about how can we problem solve and how can we make sure this is the best environment for our students and they're really getting what they need, we came up with what we referred to as our summer boost camp. We've run it for 2 years now. It's a 1-week opportunity in June where it's 4 full days. And the idea is really targeting those students who are close to completion in their specific level. So if you are in level 2, you only have 1 unit left or maybe 2 units left. How can we make sure that you're completing level 2 so that when you go into the next school year, you can really be starting on that next level of foundations to be able to continually move our students forward. When we were looking at our walk to word study and looking at implementing some of our programs, we were finding our students were just not completing a full level each year that they needed to, because you're in a large classroom, you've got all of these different levels and a teacher trying to manage all of those different levels. Our students were not making the progress that we wanted them to. So how can we make sure that we have those students finishing the levels that they're working on? So over our summer boost camp, it was really focused on getting as much information into the students and being able to move through those levels over that summer opportunity so that when they moved into the next school year, they could move on to the next level. It really was a condensed version of our foundations to give those students kind of a boost, working through 1 unit per day. In summer of 2024, we had also able to, through some grant funding, provide them with lunch when they were there, and we also provided transportation. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to move students and really push those students who needed some of that enrichment into the next level. You can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay. Oops, there we go. Oops.
Okay, so obviously we are looking for evidence of growth whenever we make changes, and Shannon is very, very good. She'll tell you about this, about slowing me down and saying it's not going to happen in 1 day, Kimberly. We're going to need to wait to see 3 years of evidence to make sure that this is making progress and making growth. And she's so right. And so the first graph here we're going to show you is the oral reading fluency graph, and this graph shows a steady improvement over each year, and within a school year from September to June. And then the gray line is our graph from this year, our line for this year. So we haven't finished our spring benchmark yet. So growth is growth. It's even whether it be small or large, but growth is growth. So we're starting at a new point each year higher, and we're getting to a higher point at the end of the year for oral reading fluency. So we're excited about that, because we're not going down, we're going up. And then also the chart on the right, if you look at the colors, the blue indicates 3rd grade and the purple indicates 4th grade. And I make these graphs every year, so at the beginning of the year, so that I know where students are starting for placement. So this is a September graph. See that we only had 4th graders in level 3. And I only gave you level 3 today because level 3 is the end goal, right? The end goal of foundations is only 3 levels. You want to get them through that 3rd level so that they have all of the foundations of this language that we are all learning. So in 22-23, we only had 4th graders in level 3. In 23-24, we had 3rd graders and 4th graders in level 3. So that was great for us because we did have students that were typically a year behind in their reading. And now this year, 24-25, we have 3rd graders and 4th graders in level 3. And then we also, if you see like the hash marked part at the top, there's blue and purple there. We have 3rd and 4th graders that have completed the program and are in an enrichment program now and have been for most of the year. So we are very excited that we are slowly getting through all of the curriculum and seeing growth in other areas within our literacy blocks and seeing carryover in our classrooms. And we're excited that we're finally getting through these programs because they're long, they're big books, and we weren't getting through before, and now we are and beyond. You can change the slide.
Just going to keep sliding around here in our rolly chair present. So one of the things, we do look at our benchmark data. We do have a data team model here at Allenstown Community School. Our formal data team meets 3 times a year, even though we are always looking at data. So we have just some examples examples of what we're looking at for a more formalized with our reading skills. So you'll see the first graph looks at 2020 to 2023 for the STAR reading assessment. And this was actually before we started our program, which started in 2021. So the first year, that gray line is kind of like our baseline. And that chart really shows about a 20% increase from September to June each school year. But we were seeing that piece of that reset at the beginning of the summer, but we're making continual steady growth each year, and that growth was getting better and better each year. As a district, SAU-wide, there was the decision made to transition from the STAR assessments to iReady assessment, which is why you see on your right-hand side, there's a graph there from 2023 to currently for iReady. So we did make the shift over to iReady for all of our benchmark assessments for reading and math during the 2023-2024 school year. So you'll see that that's that gray line, that first year of data. And what we're really excited to see coming into this year for 24-25 is that our students started, at a higher rate than they ended the year, which was really exciting to see. And they're continuing to make growth throughout the year. We have not completed our benchmark assessments yet for this year, which is why that orange line is incomplete. But it's been really nice to see that growth. And that continued growth. And that's really because we're giving students what they need, meeting them at their level, and being able to provide that instruction for them that's appropriate for where they are, and allowing them to make that growth. And I think this goes nicely hand in hand with our the placement graphs that you just saw from Kimberly. If those students have access and to those skills, they're seeing those skills, they're learning those skills, that just helps push their reading further and further each year. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. I think that if you are working in a public school at the moment, you know that there are behaviors. And I think that coming out of COVID, those behaviors have really increased. And I think that's something that's happening across the nation school-wide, and it's something that we are not immune from. And we have definitely seen, some, behaviors impact our students. What I think is really important to note, and what I am trying to illustrate with this graph, is that we do like our data here in Allenstown, and along with keeping academic data, we also track all of our student support calls that we get every single day. And we're able to look at the date, the time, the location of those support calls to be able to track our data. And when we look at our data, when we're talking about our elementary students, we can see that there is a significant decrease in the number of support calls that we receive during our word study block. So during that time of day when word study is, when we're tracking our support calls, we're receiving weekly about one support call during that time. And that's really significant in terms of students are in a place and learning from a place where they feel comfortable, where they feel like they can access the curriculum that they're receiving. And we all know that when students are getting what they need, the academic blocks of time that we look at during the day, where we're averaging about 2.5 support calls a week during those academic times. I will note that the only other time that is this low in terms of number of support calls is during our play workshop for our K-2 students, which is really a time of day where they're learning those social skills and those play skills. We've moved into doing a lot of that with our K-2. So that time period is comparable when you're talking about the academics of reading compared to the play workshop. We're seeing the same levels of behavior in those two areas. And I think that really signifies that students are feeling really supported when they're doing that walk to word study program. You can go ahead and move to the next slide.
Okay, so in summary, we definitely had some challenges. We had cracks in our foundation, which is what that picture is on the top there. And therefore we had shaky houses. And as we mentioned earlier, we needed to do some revamping in all 3 educational tiers in response to the brain-based research. We needed supplies for multiple groups of students for our foundations program to work, for our Walk to Word Study program to work, since we were so spread out and it wasn't just classroom teachers that were doing this program. We needed lots of materials, and funding is always an issue. So we were very lucky to acquire some materials from the Bow schools who decided to make a curriculum change. And we got a bunch of magnet boards and magnet letters and whiteboards. So we were very grateful to receive those materials because that's definitely helped our program a lot. And again, we're super happy the school board decided to keep our Fun Hub subscriptions, because that is, again, very helpful so that we can have multiple locations in the building doing these Walk to Word Study groups. We talked to, as a staff, about the best way to share our grades. And I mentioned that we have those data points on our grids so that teachers can look to see what their students are doing, since they don't teach their word study group a lot of the times. And that is helping our staff as well. You can go ahead and change the slide.
Okay.
You can change the slide, Diane.
I did. Oh, didn't it's
Oh,
not
no,
showing?
here it goes. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right,
Oh.
this is you.
Oh, gosh, we had a crash. So the administrative perspective, kind of that like bird's eye view of how this was launched, and kind of those the spokes that we needed to address along the way. So as Kimberly said, she's extremely energetic and you know, focused, driven, and really wanted kids to make significant progress immediately, which we knew was not going to happen. So we really had some in-depth conversations about pacing. What is reasonable for our students? What's reasonable for our staff? What is going to help us ensure success? And so we talked about 3 years. We're going to give ourselves 3 years, and we are going to, you know, recalibrate along the way. And we are not going to, you know, make any huge changes right off the bat or early on. We want this to play out, but knowing that it's going to take time. Scheduling. How are we going to schedule this so that it works for everyone? How are we going to find sort of that sweet spot? And as Kimberly shared with you, we did find that, you know, earlier in the morning is the best time for us. And that just seems to be what's worked in our school. It may be different in other schools, but we had to toy with that. We had to try things, and it was okay if it wasn't perfect. We would make those shifts. Training. So one of the hardest things I think in schools is to ensure that the staff that are delivering the instruction all have equal access to training and are trained before they begin working with students. I think a lot of times we say, here's what we're doing, go and do it. And that's hard for staff who may not have had equal amount of training, who may not feel confident about what they are learning, what they are instructing on. So we actually went staff member by staff member. What training have they had? What training do they need? And Kimberly worked very hard to make sure that everybody was on equal ground in terms of preparedness, feeling trained, feeling confident, and ready to greet their students and deliver to the students what they need. Each time we hire a new employee, that's part of their onboarding. What have you had? What do you need? The other thing, a couple of other things, trust. We needed to talk to our staff about this. It wasn't just selling, but we wanted them to trust what our thoughts were. that we believed in what we were doing, that we wanted their feedback, and that took some time. There were some staff who kind of looked at this and thought, oh my gosh, am I gonna have all these people in my classrooms? How's this really gonna go? I don't know if this is ever gonna work. You're gonna let kids walk in the hallway by themselves. They're only 5. So there were just all of these trust pieces that we thought about and front loaded before we kicked it off. And we've had to revisit some of those things along the way. And then finally, the progress monitoring piece, as both of them have alluded to, we do love our data here, and that really drives the way that we are moving forward, and not from the most global level of a school to the more finite level of each individual student. So it's progress monitoring at every level, so that we can make the best decisions for our students. We really wanted everybody to be comfortable with what we were doing and, sharing our vision for what we were looking for student success. You can change the slide.
Okay.
Oh, it's me again. Okay. So kind of some of the keys to our success that we wanted to share out is strength-based instruction. So we allowed staff to tell us, what level do you feel comfortable teaching? Where do you feel like you shine and can have the greatest impact on students? Again, we wanted them comfortable. We wanted them confident. And so that's why earlier Kimberly alluded to the fact that there are, teachers who don't teach word study to their own students, because really we went with that strength. Starting with, we're going to practice walk to word study. Again, that confidence piece. Kids have to practice. Staff had to practice being out in the halls. We had extra people out there guiding students. And everybody knew what they were doing on day one. So it was, we could ensure as smooth a transition as possible. Protected time for school-wide implementation. Word study is sacred at our school. We do not plan things during word study. Occasionally, if we have state testing or, some other bigger things, there might be some interruptions. But overall, that is sacred time. We do not plan anything during that part of the day that will interrupt that instruction. Again, a huge emphasis on training. Having staff feel confident, making sure everybody is trained, making sure all new employees are on trained. It's part of onboarding. And then finally, being confident in our students. When we first talked about walking to word study, there was some real trepidation about all these kids are going to be going all over the building, and, what if they get lost, and what if this, and what if that? But we teach our kids to do all kinds of things all the time. They don't pull the fire alarms because we teach them not to. And we teach them what their schedule is during the day. And we found some real, benefits. Kids were very confident about their lanyard with their animal, and I'm a moose and I'm finding a moose, and it's almost like a scavenger hunt every day until they're really, confident about where they are going. And again, when they're in groups where they are properly placed, they feel confident, they want to go there. So really believing in our students. And I think if I had to rewrite that slide, I would say, and in our staff as well. If you can change the slide, Diane.
Yep.
Oh, this is our contact information. If you want to get in touch with us and have, need any additional information, we're always happy to share what we are doing. We are an open book in Allenstown and just happy to share.
So, Heidi or Teresa, do we have some questions that we want to put out there that people have written?
We do have some questions.
Okay.
All right, because I think Kristen has been helping me keep track. Are we all set, Kristen? I don't know if she can hear me. So this was actually one that wasn't in the chat. It was from me. What is the screener that you use to place your students in? Do you start with their iReady benchmark results?
We use the foundation screener
Yep. Okay.
that comes with it's really an intervention screener to know where to put students for intervention, what level they go through. So we use that for new students that come into the building. But we pretty much know where kids are going to go. Like this May or June when we finish June 5th. So I'll take the groups where students are this year and I'll know where they're going to begin the next year. And so when they come in the fall, they'll do like a pre-test when they get into their group, just to make sure that they didn't lose a lot over the summer and that they can actually stay and start in that level. And then that's how we start the next groups. But for the new students coming in, we use the foundations placement test.
Gotcha.
Okay, I have the next question here. Is this in addition to Tier 1 instruction, or is it Tier 1?
So this is in addition to Tier 1 instruction. So this hits the phonics bracket of our Tier 1 instruction. So some of the classrooms use UFly in their Tier 1. We have the Haggerty component, and like I mentioned, we have EL education, and so they have phonics and grammar as part of that program as well. We do not have the skills block part of EL education, so the foundations does take the place of that program within EL, but they do loop phonics and word study into their core programs as well. And then we also have reading RTI. So we have a reading and a math RTI block, 30 minutes each throughout the day. So within their reading groups, within their classroom, that's another time for them to be working on phonics skills as well.
Okay. Another question was, are these groups multi-grade level? So, and this is K-4, correct?
Yes, K-4. They are multi-grade level. So wherever the students need to be is where they are. We try our best to keep, fourth graders not with kindergartners. We try our best, and most of the time it has worked out. My group this year is 3rd and 4th grade mixed. We have some 2nd and 3rd graders that are together. We have a 1st grader that's in a level 2 this year. So it's kind of like whatever they need is what they get.
Okay. So I think the question that someone asked about, do you give the placement test for their grade level? That foundations placement test, if I'm not mistaken, is a general placement test.
Yes,
correct?
it's more like a core phonics survey.
Yep.
And so that it's not based on grade level, it's just based on overall skill.
Yep.
And then I also, with new students, I also meet with them individually and give them like end of level placement tests for their grade level, just to make sure that they're definitely placed on where they need to be.
Okay.
The next question is, would you all be open to teachers coming to observe this next year?
Sure.
Yes, yeah.
We're always, well, we welcome anybody to come in if anybody wants to. That's great. We would be happy to host.
Okay.
So what do you, just one question that I have. So thinking about everything that you've talked about today, and what are your next steps and goals for your school and all of this?
So I think we all kind of have different pieces in this. One of the things that we are doing now that we are K-8 in one building is expanding that literacy focus to grades 5 through 8. We have started that journey. And again, that was part of those pacing discussions of, okay, here's where we're starting. Where are we going where do we want this to end? And so there was a lot of curriculum discussions, a lot of instructional discussions. So that's where we are from the more global perspective. I don't know if you want to add.
So next year, part of my role is to teach my struggling readers in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'm actually going to become part of the UAs, and I'm going to split time with guidance, who has a connections class, and she'll teach for 2 weeks, and then I will teach for 2 weeks. So I'm going to be teaching a writing class for grades.
Wow,
Yeah, for grades K through 4. Very excited about that.
that's fun.
And then also we talked about looking at our data and how we're seeing like the reset in September every year. We talked about how we really
So
need
that
to focus
you
in
guys
on.
you're freezing right now, so we completely lost the reset from reset on. What did you
Okay.
say?
Okay, I just said that we noticed that we need to share this data with families and let them know how they impact literacy scores. And so we have a family literacy night coming up on May 22nd. And one of the things we're going to do on that evening is to have parents sit in on a 10-minute conversation where they get to see some of this data so that we can start to show them their part in their student success. And that is something that we've talked about. You know, how can we involve families more? We've tried a bunch of different things, but that's a very hard piece. The one we can't control, right?
It's that summer reset pieces.
Okay.
That's where that conversation started. I don't know where you picked up on that.
I think another piece too that we started to see this year and we are looking to expand is those students in 4th grade who've completed all 3 levels of foundations. This was the first year we had a group. And we, I do think, as we're moving through this, more and more students are going to be falling into that category. So what are our next steps for that? And how do we provide that enrichment for those students in 4th grade? And then, I mean, really, truly our goal is that the majority of our 4th grade students will have completed level 3. So we can look at some really very different skills to be teaching our 4th grade.
I've been working this year and end of last year with 5th and 6th grade with morphology and bringing in more of that, and also some hardcore vocabulary strategies. And they've been very engaged in that material and looking to add some more. So I'm very excited about expanding that part of things as well.
I
Good.
think one of the keys to any school that's really looking at all these different pieces is really thinking outside the box, making writing part of our unified arts rotation, is outside the box, but it's one more way to get that instruction in kind of, and that's where we started with word study is how do we do this?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Let's see.
This was a question that I had because at other schools that I've worked at, we've tried a version of this, and it was always challenging to I don't want to say convince because it's not like we're trying to twist arms, but I think the principal addressed this a lot. There are a few teachers who are very nervous about giving up their students. So I just wondered what that conversation was like for you guys.
Yep, that was part of the conversation from the beginning. I think that there are a couple parts of that. One is, I'm afraid other people are going to see that my student is not making progress, and is this a reflection on me? We were very clear from the get-go that the purpose of this is to move kids forward and to have them go to whatever group they need to be in. And that also we want teachers to be comfortable and confident and trained. So that's where that strengths-based piece came in. Where do you feel like you can do the most good? And then also having that data in the grids adds a piece of accountability. And it is a visual of fidelity.
Yep.
So I feel like, once staff really saw all those different pieces, they could see that this was a collaborative effort, a collaborative literacy effort, with many different components. And you know, there is always that trepidation in the beginning, and Kimberly and I had many conversations about that pacing piece and that trust piece, and really that celebration piece. Like every time we, you know, there's good news, and because teachers can easily see how their students are progressing, even though they aren't in their room, it makes them feel like they're still part of that progress. This
Right.
walk to word study is just one prong
One
of
prong.
their literacy instruction in this building.
I was going to mention the accountability piece as well. I do think that it holds, what's the word? So it gives you a sense of support with your other teachers in the building, because you know you can trust them with your kids, and you know that they're going to get what they need. So it's almost like you start to feel like you are part
It's
of
a professional partnership
Yeah, that's a great way to
in
say it.
student learning.
Right. Thank you. That's a perfect way to say it.
I mean, you are not downplaying it. You're celebrating that your teachers have done that. And that's not only a tribute to your teachers, it's a tribute to
Yeah.
leadership. That doesn't always happen.
Mhm.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think
Oh, thank
too,
you. I
Thank
think
you.
oh, you're welcome. I think too, the other thing is because this is a tier two, this is an intervention or separate. Because foundations, we do the same thing. Our foundations piece, our teachers didn't feel like it covered spelling, not in the traditional sense. We don't even call it spelling anymore. We call it word study. So we always felt like that was a missing piece. So it's not like the teachers have lost total control of phonics. They still have that happening. So this is incredible. This is really good. I'm so glad you're sharing this.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, there's been, walk to read, floating around, and I feel like people they've kind of been like, oh, that's old fashioned, but it isn't. I think it's very amazing.
Thank you. Something new that we added in this year was, I'm the reading specialist, but this year I'm teaching second grade because we had a shortage at the beginning of the year.
course.
But they get me a sub once a month, and then I have a reading specialist day. And on
Oh my
those days I push into, I know it's a lot. On those days I push into word study classes, K-4, and
Yep.
support teachers and how are things going? What can I do to help? What resources do you need? What questions do you have? What do you want me to observe right now? And they know that I'm not there in an
Oh, you're s-
evaluative way.
frozen.
I'm there to support them and to help that the students are engaged in making growth and making progress. So I
That's
think that
fabulous.
helps too. And it's also helped them all of the teachers to feel again supported and seen and celebrated.
Yeah.
And
It's
do
like
you
a
have-
team building.
Do
So
you
you
have
guys are
special
building
education-
teams.
Sorry, do you have special education students? All students are in this mix, right? Yeah.
All 210 students.
Yep, all students.
Okay, thank you, Heidi, for bringing that up, because I think that ties into another question. Make sure I don't miss any, Heidi. Were there only classroom teachers? I'm getting the sense that there wasn't. If there
No.
were others, who did you include as part of your walk to word study?
Yeah, so we have about 20 groups in our walk to word study, and those include all of our classroom teachers, K-4, all of our Title I interventionists, and all of our special education case managers. When we talk about this really being a school-wide sacred time, where we're pretty serious about that. This is part of the special education, piece too. This is our title interventionist. That allows us to keep our groups very small. We talked about our groups being between 2 and 18. But that large number group is few and far between. We're able to keep our group small because we really committed to everybody doing this together.
Super.
We hit all the questions, Teresa.
I think so.
Hey, did you, Sarah and Shannon and Kimberly have any questions for us at all?
No, I mean, we were just really honored to be part of this and to be asked to do this. and to kind of share what we're doing. And, you know, we're happy to host or talk about it anytime.
Well, I am really grateful that you guys were willing to do this. You gave me goosebumps because I'm listening to it. I'm like, it's so cool. I know that you were hoping that Carol would come to see you, and she would like to do that. She's just not around right now, so we'll figure that out. I'd like to go also to observe this myself and just cheer you guys on. So I'm going to take this share down, and I'm going to put up another share of what we have going on. No, that's not the one I want. This is the one I want. This is, can you see this?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have a summer book study that if people are interested in, we're always looking for members in our reading league. And we're always looking for people who want to maybe help and be on committees. But there's also this, I can't even see this because I'm doing that. We have this book study that we're providing for the summer. So if you want to take a look at that, we also have it, we have it posted on our website, Debbie.
Yes, we do. Mhm.
Okay, so that starts off on June 18th. And from today, we will have the recording also posted on our website, or does it go into something different, Deb?
You register through that QR code, and then you're all set, because it's a national book study that all chapters are participating in.
We'll share this out with all of our staff.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, and the recording for today's thing we'll have up on our website. Is that correct?
Yes.
The people that
That'll
no, there
go
were
on
like-
the website and also on our YouTube channel.
Okay. I know that we had about 40 registrants, and we ended up with about 20. So people usually still, several of my friends have said, I want to watch that. So so you guys are going to be like famous.
You
Exciting.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really
Thank you.
appreciate
You're
it.
so
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you for thinking.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was
Excellent.
fun.
All
That was
right.
excellent.